Uh,
Welcome to another 010 podcast. I'm Josie with my host, Andy.
Hi.
And then we have a guest today, Mark Wagner. And Mark and I have been friends since I first started being a chiropractor, pretty much. He saw me in my early stages. And we've just had some really awesome conversations throughout the years. So I wanted him to come on here and share his story a bit with everyone. So Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to these days, and then we'll go into the early days.
Okay. Well, I've been around a while, I guess. I'm a little bit on the older side, so I take some pride in that we survived that long. Um, Kind of semi-retired a little bit about a year ago, and that lasted about 4 months, and didn't want to be done. So I started looking around and had an opportunity to become a business coach, actually with the North Dakota Women's Business Center. And so that is what I do right now. I just provide coaching to people who are getting involved in business and getting started. Kind of use all that background that I've had to do that. And so that's what I've been doing for over just over a year now. And so that background comes from a lot of angles, in economic development for quite a while, senior economic and or senior executive level position with the company for a few years, and management and all that kind of stuff. So I pull all that stuff back together and I get to use it helping people get started. It's really been a lot of fun. So
Those are all big words, and for us that maybe are in the smaller business world, we don't have those. So can you explain, like maybe start like from the beginning of your career on what you
sure.
did and then move through? Yeah.
Uh, Very first start in my career was actually in the safety and health field, I guess. I started working a little bit with the local safety council here in Bismarck and the North Dakota Safety Council. Worked with the Mine Safety and Health Administration. That took me down to Atlanta with a job, and we lived down there for a couple of years. Our first daughter was born there, our oldest daughter, and she's a Georgia peach. And so after a while, it was really decided that, the big city and that kind of thing, both my wife and I are from North Dakota. My wife is from a small town in Mott, and it was like, this is not where we want to raise a family. So back home to North Dakota we came, and ended up having to kind of recreate a little bit, career-wise, as we came back and we did something, bless you, and came back and did that kind of thing. So got involved a little bit with working for the state and started working with substance abuse a little bit and doing community development and growth work in that and training parents. I did some parenting training for kids with substance abuse, and missed my business background. So I was doing some business plan development on the side and that kind of thing, and got a job to get into economic development and did that for a few years. Then this big call center came to town called Sykes, and I got involved with them, and I spent several years with Sykes. And then as that happened, a lot of the call center work was going overseas, and I really didn't want to move, to India or to that kind of thing in our life. And so now we had to reinvent again a little bit and moved out to Dickinson and went to work with Rosenbluth Travel. And so that was actually kind of fun. And but then he sold the business. And so I reinvented again and came back to North Dakota, back to Bismarck, I should say. And quite honestly, during that period of time, I had probably one of the most interesting jobs I ever had. I went to work for the prison and was the director of marketing and sales for the prison industries program. And that program taught me a lot, and a lot of growth pieces and gratefulness and that kind of thing. So when I did that, I spent about 7, 8 years there, and then got into the oil field for a little bit. A couple of startup companies that I was a part of and got going. And then the last part of my career has been in heavy equipment, Herc Rentals, I opened up there one of the Bismarck stores and then ran all three stores in North Dakota. Worked with Butler Machinery and Caterpillar and then Titan Machinery for the last couple of years. And I guess that's kind of a nutshell, a little more than you might have wanted to hear, I guess, but there it is.
Well, it's interesting because I mean there was a lot of those that was kind of like a forced decision where
Yeah,
where it was like the business was changing, but some of those were personal decisions, I believe.
yeah,
And
I agree.
what I don't know, what do you start feeling when it's time to move to something else? Like how do you trust that and go with it?
Well, when it was on the personal side, it had to do was there a continual growth pattern and a challenge? I always felt that in any job I ever had, I needed to be challenged. I needed to have an opportunity for growth, and I needed to have a voice. Those were the three things that I needed to have. And when one of those things was slipping away or just wasn't there, then it was a real discussion of is it worth staying or do I go find that somewhere? And for me, that was always it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was pushing myself as well. Discussions you and I used to have, it at a point, I just got kind of bored after a while. If I couldn't see getting to another level and being challenged some more, it was, I need to find that challenge. And I still feel that. And it's fun doing this because every day I have a new challenge with a new client and it's that. So that problem solving for me becomes out naturally and I get to do that again.
What do you notice as a difference between, I mean, working mostly with men in the last few years to working with females, you know?
um, in a lot of ways it isn't different. I think I've always tried to treat people just with respect and being honest and transparent as I can be. And from what I've found, that's very much what anybody sitting across the desk from you wants, regardless of whether you're male or female. I do understand, I think, that there have been some challenges that women have faced, particularly when getting into business, starting business, being taken seriously about it. And when they have visited certain coaches or financial institutions, maybe they haven't been treated with that level of respect, which is concerning. But I like to think maybe that's not as prevalent as it used to be. But I still think that we have a mindset difference. Men seem to be less concerned with risk. Maybe they're more willing to jump off the cliff, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the ladies are more conservative. Let's find the right way to do this. And I think when you go into business, you got to have that blend of both. And so sometimes it's pushing people a little bit. We got to get you going. We can sit and talk about it forever, but if you really want the business to go, we have to make these moves. And and we work with men as well, not just so the couple of men I have, sometimes I have to slow them down and get them to take a look at where you're going and what you're doing. So it's been interesting for me to have that. But being a father of two very strong-minded daughters,
Mm-hmm.
my wife was a professional woman as well. So I've had that in my life, forever. And so for that part of it, it's just kind of a continuation for me. And it's been a learning experience. And I've been every once in a while I go back and ask a question, how do I deal with this so I don't interfere and I don't make them feel this way or that way. And I have people that'll give me honest feedback, and that's good. That's where I'm at. I asked you that a few
You
times.
do.
We would chat, and
Yeah.
you would give me your impressions, and so that helped form my growth as well.
You talked about a book that you use quite often. Was it Crucial Conversations or something like that?
Yeah, Susan Scott. and it's oh, I'm going to go blank on the title now. It's well, it has to do with conversation. Fierce Conversations is what it did, the
That's
name of the
what it
book.
was.
And the big thing with Susan Scott's thing, it's a lot about the conversations we're not having. And when we think about it, when you're in a relationship, whether it's a friend or a spouse or anything like that, how many times have we, started a conversation and go, no, I'm not going there. I don't even want to start it because it's just going to become a problem. I don't want to have that fight. I don't want to have that. If you can put that away and you're okay with that, that's fine. But how many times does a little thing later come up then, and then all of this other stuff comes out that we haven't talked about? And I know I've been on the receiving end sometimes with friend or whatever. I'm sure you have too, that all of a sudden I had no idea you felt that way about some of that stuff. Why didn't you ever say anything? And so we have to have those conversations about, I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable. I'm not comfortable or whatever it is, and say that. And why don't we? But
Mhm.
we'll wait until we hit something and then we have this big blow up and then we just gone, rather than just talking about that kind of stuff. So I think that's one of the top things, whether you're in business, whether you're in a relationship, you have to be able to have the conversations. And sometimes they're not pleasant. So how do you have those conversations in a manner that's respectful and has, professional, and you can do it with courtesy. Um, the other thing I found about conversations and communication in courses that I teach is that there was a three-question element I picked up one time that I just lived by, and I've added a couple things to it. But the three questions are, does this need to be said? The second question is, does this need to be said by me? And the third question is, does this need to be said by me now? And I've gotten to the point where I can rip through those three questions pretty quick. And if I keep saying yes, then the conversation needs to be had. And then I've added a couple, but the one thing I've really added is, can it be said with courtesy and respect? And if you can put those four things together and sit down and have that conversation, it's limitless where you can go with it. It really is.
Yeah. I can see so many of those conversations in my personal life, professional life, like all of them. That it does help. I'm not a very fast at it like you are. I need to practice, but yeah, that those are um, really important and just like navigating like what your goals are and what you want to do
Yep.
um, with your life in general. Yeah. So tell us about your family.
Okay. Well, as I said, and I've alluded to, I'm married, two daughters. And I got seven grandchildren, and they're all in Bismarck, and so life gets to be a little hectic and a lot of fun some days. And believe it or not, one of those is a golfer, and I got one
Wow,
golfer
you got a
so
golfer.
far in the bunch, but we'll see if we get a few more. They're very active. They do a lot of things. My oldest daughter is a clinical counselor, and she and her family live in Mandan and spend some time, quite a bit of time with us and do that stuff. My second daughter, Marissa, she is works with sickies. She's one of the shift managers and trainers, and so she's also in that business world of how do you deal with employees and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of fun for me to watch that as we have those conversations, because it's like, Dad, how do you do this? And so we talk about that every once in a while. Susan has retired from her second career about 3, 4 years ago and has become a full-time grandmother. And she's enjoying that to the max. And so that's really our life. That's the family. It's going well. Everybody's doing good. Just navigating day-to-day stuff with kids, and it's fun to watch because now we've got those 12-year-old preteen kids that are starting to get to that age where they're becoming independent. And it's fun for me because I get to see a little bit of my daughters in them. And then, you remember that age and that time, and the daughters start to uh, get a little backbone, and they start having some talking back a little bit and pushing. And I just kind of smirk because I remember those days, and it's going, yeah, there you go. It's karma.
Dharma.
I think it's called hormones.
There's a
Well,
lot
a
going
little bit
on
of that,
right
but
now.
I think it's that exertion of independence. They're
Yes, of
getting to that
course.
age
Yeah,
and they want to have a say, and
yeah,
that's good. They need
absolutely.
to have it, absolutely. But it's
Mhm.
it's also frustrating, and how do you deal with that as a parent? And as a grandparent, it's kind of easier because it's not that tug of war so much with us. Um, but it's been interesting, and it's fun to watch, and it's fun to watch my daughters navigate it
Yeah.
and go from there, and we can step back and not have to be so involved. So, but it's fun to watch them have that independence and watch them grow. So,
So I have to say, Mark, you are our first male guest on the 010 podcast.
You are.
So congratulations to you. I don't know what that means.
I don't either. I
You
don't.
don't get a prize
Well,
or
I'm
anything.
honored. I'm honored. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Uh,
Um, so it's, I guess for me personally, it's some of the questions that we've asked our guests come from struggles that I've had as a female business owner and a female leader and things like that. Um, but one of the things we typically will ask our female guests is, what do you do to take care of yourself? And I think that's a huge thing in the female world, right? Because we are mothers and we are um, typically we are in charge of our household, and we have partners and plus running a business that is not usually a 40-hour a week job. So
right.
um, but as a male, I don't know your responsibilities at home or with, you kind of fill this in a little bit with your grandchildren, but
Yeah.
how do you take care of yourself personally? What do you do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you are okay mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all the things?
Okay. Well, I don't know that personally. It may not be a whole lot different than conversations that Josie and I used to have. I'm a reader. I love to read. And so for me, that escape piece to get away and just have that quiet time and spend some time reading and reflecting and doing a lot of that. Um, but I also tend to agree that from your standpoint, I understand where the challenges come from because, if I look at relationships over the years of the roles, typically the female has the wife, the mother, not only had an outside job a lot of times, but she had the vast majority of the responsibilities at home too, particularly around parenting and that kind of thing. And I probably came through that generation a little bit. When I was with Sykes, I was on the road a lot. And so, quite honestly, Susan had that whole role. And a lot of times, probably as a senior mom or a single mom, I should say. And for me, so, I'd come home sometimes and I'd be home for 4 or 5 days and then gone. It was just enough to disrupt the very nice pattern she developed at home, and I'd disrupt it and
Yep.
leave again. And it took a while, but after I came off the road and did that, we started to realize how different that was and made some shifts and going around that way. Um, and we still have things though that she favors. She loves to cook, so the kitchen for her is her therapy. She loves cooking for big meals and the family, and Josie might remember all that, and just that, and the gardening and the flowers. And that might be typical role, but she does thoroughly enjoy that. Me, I'll do the dishes. and the grilling, and so I'm the one doing the dishes at the end of the night and that kind of thing. But taking care of yourself, I think, doesn't need to be grandiose. I think it's little things that you just need to step back and realize you need some time. And what does that mean? Um, One of the things is I'm unilaterally deaf. I'm totally deaf on my left side. So when the evening comes and I'm winding down and the hearing aids come out and that kind of thing, I'm all but totally deaf. So for me, it's that really nice, quiet, silent time. Um, just to sit back and read and reflect and do that kind of stuff. And then I do, I play a little golf. I also still bowl after several years. And so I have that time outside the house a little bit and recreation with the guys and stuff like that. So that's the kind of thing that we do. And my wife has that same thing for herself, like I said. So
Good.
it goes on both sides. Not saying that we always solve everything the best way sometimes, but I think we do a pretty good job.
Yeah, you're very much a unit. Like all of that was about how you guys managed it in a house, which
Mhm.
is really, really cool. And I just know this from knowing you for many years, but like when did health become a high priority for you?
I think it always has been without really maybe consciously thinking that. Having grown up with the earaches as a little kid, and then understanding when I had a doctor and I'll never forget this as long as I live, but um, a doctor told my mom and dad, he's just making up the earaches for attention. And so I think maybe sometimes how ladies and women don't get taken seriously by doctors with certain things, and whether it's in business or not, with the same thing, they weren't taking it seriously. And then one day there's a hole in his eardrum, and doctor says, "Oh, there must be something there." And back then there was only two ENTs in the state of North Dakota, and they were both assigned to Air Force bases, one in Minot and one in Grand Forks. So I got referred to this doctor in Minot, and the doctor was like shocked and looked at my dad and made a comment that said, don't you believe in taking your kid to the doctor? Because he's like, this shouldn't be this way. Well, my dad, who never cursed, said a few things. And the doctor, backed up and they became good friends. But the evolution of that, though, is I always had this, and then I had to learn to adapt. And I did pretty well. And the new technology with hearing aids has really helped now because of my crossover. But the health piece was also a realization that in my family, um, I have my mom, between my mom and dad, there was 15 kids, aunts and uncles and all that, right? Big German families. And uh, out of those 15 kids, 15 of them have died from cancer-related diseases, including my mom and dad. And so for me, that was always in the back of my mind as a reality as I grew up and learned some things that I need to be careful. I need to be looking for that kind of stuff. So I was always kind of cautious. And so then it was, how do I take care of myself? And what can I do for me? And so I got the chiropractic stuff that we started and you helped me with made a big difference in the sporting stuff that I do and the things I like to do. And then I got into the stretch therapy, which I still do at your recommendation. And I can tell the difference. My recovery from sports is a lot less. We get done playing around the golf and sit around and the guys get up from chairs and everybody's kind of halfway stooped over and walking away. And I basically stand up and go away because I don't hurt like that.
Yeah.
And so that type of stuff is valuable to me. And so I continue to do that. And, some people, we only spend a lot of money on this and that. And I said, well, I do. But then again, I'm not spending, four, five, $600 a month in the bar. I don't drink. I don't do that. I choose to put it to this, and that helps me. And the bowling, you're not so sore. You're not all of that kind of stuff. And then I just want to make sure I do the right things to try to avert maybe a cancer scare. I don't know that that can happen. I don't know. We'll see. So far, so good, I guess, at that point. And I just want to keep doing that. And then if I do find it, I want to get it early and do what I can to treat it and do those types of things. So, but the health piece for me is just always something been there, mainly because of that year and how that started and going from that.
Mm-hmm. I heard a phrase once that you pay now or you pay later, and I'm a big believer in that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, people, you put your money into your health now, or you're going to have to later, and it's probably going to be tenfold.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yeah. Well, and it takes a lot away from you, right? If you're always sore and you don't want to do anything, and
Yeah.
that's not to say I don't ever feel anything. And I certainly, even with the extra stuff, as I get older, things take longer and all of that kind of stuff. But I just think for the most part, I look at a lot of people in that same age range, and there's a distinct difference in how I walk versus how I see them walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I just continue to do that, and I just believe in it. And I think because of that, my family has believed in that as well. So, they kind of do the same things of taking care of themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
hope it goes to the grandkids and they do the same, to be honest.
Right. Generational change or shift.
And only hope, right? A little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. What was your time in Atlanta like? I want to go back to that. What did you think of the city life versus the Bismarck life?
Um, at 24, 25 years old, it was an exciting time, to
Okay.
be quite honest with you. And quite honestly, I think everybody should try it. You should live somewhere and experience it because it is a very different lifestyle. It really is. Um, for me, I enjoyed it because we had professional sports and all of that kind of stuff, which I enjoyed. Our office was downtown, tied right next to the Omni, which is where the Atlanta Hawks play basketball. And so I didn't even have to leave my parking space from work. I could walk right out of the office, go down and grab a sandwich at Chick-fil-A and walk right into the Omni and watch a basketball game. And that's exciting. That's fun to be a part of that. Plus pro football, pro baseball. We and my daughters are both, into sports and stuff, and a large part of that. And it's in as you know, I'm a little bit of a foodie. We enjoy going out and trying different meals and stuff, and we still do that. My Susan and I have a date night every Saturday night, and that's dinner and whatever we choose to do afterwards. Um, but we try different restaurants, we try different foods, we do all that. You go to Atlanta and you do that, you could go to a different restaurant every week and never go to the same place twice ever. And that was fun.
Right.
It was really fun to have that experience of something that different. But everywhere you go, there's a crowd. And every time you get on the road, there's extensive traffic. And after a while, you sit back and you think, there's a better way. And that's really, when Susan said it's time to go back. I fought it at first because career-wise, I was probably several steps ahead in Atlanta than I'm going to be back in Bismarck. And coming back, I did. It took several steps backwards. That's the way it went.
Yeah.
And so for a while, I had to deal with that. I'm angry and frustrated, but as I sit back and look at it now, it was definitely the best thing we could do for the family. and raising our kids back here. Grandma and grandpa were here on both sides, and they had that exposure to grandparents growing up. And so they were close to them, which is why we aim to be close with ours. And so, but fun, exciting for a period of time. Family wise, it was just decided this was better to do, come back home. So,
Um, I don't know why that just reminded me of the different ways that you give to your community. I've learned a lot that way. And of course, I want you to share some of the ways. I know that you don't want to, but it taught me how to think outside the box of giving.
well, we do a number of things. One, I serve on a few boards that does that. I'm on my third 6 year stint with the United Way, because you can only do 6 years at a time, then you got to be off. And so I must be doing something right. They keep asking me back on, so I watch United Way and
Yeah.
that part of it. I got to be, for me, it was really interesting because I became, when we started talking about the homeless situation, and I remember you and I talking about this, we would have this we don't have homeless in North Dakota. And that was the attitude of a lot of people. But when we got down to it, there's a lot of homeless. And so when the coalition and one of the entities in town had to close their doors, I worked, and my wife as well worked with United Way to work on establishing a center for homeless, and beyond that, not just housing them, but helping them find jobs and to get to the next steps and to get to the next levels. And it kind of opened our eyes to a lot of things, I think. And the one story that meant something more to me than anything is we had a mother, who essentially two kids living in her car, and in the parking lot of a local grocery store. And bless the heart of the grocery store, because I think if corporate would have found out, they probably wouldn't have been happy. But in the morning, they would put up we're cleaning this restroom, and allow her to take her two children inside to clean them up and kind of just start their day. And she would take them to school. So those two kids never missed a day of school.
Wow.
She's living in a car, and those two children never missed a day of school. And that business took a risk. I mean, that manager, I think, you find out a corporate might have said they might have blown their tops, but he took that risk. He did it. And that to me showed me, what resilience can do if you just stay with it. And so then we were fortunate enough, we were able to get some money together and got her put into an apartment, and got her set up, and she got a job and with all that kind of thing. And it's still fun every once in a while to run into her and see the difference that made. So that for me was a big thing. And so that's how we started doing some different things. My wife has been a volunteer with the local soup kitchen. And one of the coolest things I see there is the gentleman that runs it. His name is Mark as well. But he and I talk a lot. And one of the things that just impressed me with him, when he talks to people about coming to the soup kitchen, he says, yeah, we want you to come and volunteer. We need the help. That's great. But he said, what we'd really like you to do is just come and interact with the people who come in every day. Sit down at a table, listen to their story, and just talk to them like they're real people. And that piece, I think, is more valuable than anything. And then when you hear the stories, you hear the backgrounds, um, these people aren't there because they want to be. There's things that have happened, there's backgrounds, a lot of mental health issues. And so when all that comes to be, we look at can we do things differently? So I think one of the things that we did that you and I talked about that was kind of fun is, when my girls were little, I would go to the bank and I would get $61 bills. So each girl got, you remember this, right? Each
I
girl
do.
got $1 a day. And they were told, you have to leave this somewhere for somebody. You can't give it to them. You can't do anything like that. You have to leave it for somebody just to find randomly. And so the dollars would be placed all over the place. I used to like to go, I would go to McDonald's to get my sweet tea, and I would put them in the napkin holders or inside where the straws were. So somebody would grab a straw and $1 bill would come out. Just whatever you wanted to do. But it was teaching to give back. And I suppose there were times that people who didn't need the money got it, but I hope they got the idea of what we were doing. And so we kind of did that. And even to this day, I still do that random breakfast buy, on my Saturday mornings at Cracker Barrel. I'll look at the waitress and I say every once in a while, who are we going to buy breakfast for today? And she'll just pick somebody out and I said, bring me her bill and we'll pay it. But don't tell them, nobody knows where it came from, all of that kind of stuff. So we still do that and we have fun with it. Some Saturday nights we'll notice a particular table, we'll just pick that tab up. And so it's just a way of giving back and being grateful for what we have. And hopefully that just passes on a little bit. So
I know one, like you've done that through my practice when I was in practice in Bismarck, and um, who like, is there anybody who's struggling to pay for care right now? And that was something that, I never really thought about, that somebody would just, I think you do that with maybe a dentist too.
yes, I did.
If there's somebody, and not, I never even crossed my mind of a way of that way, like of picking up that kind of, that bill, or, you know, giving back that way. So definitely taught me a lot. Taught me
But it was shared, right?
yeah.
So the deal I made with you and the
Hmm.
deal I made with my dentist is I'll split it with you.
Hmm.
So you come to me and tell me you've got somebody that needs a certain amount of care. You tell me what half that bill is. I'll pay half if you'll take care of the other half. And we had a handful of patients that we did that with, and we were happy to do it. I was happy to do it. And I still get the occasional call from the dental office saying, hey, we've got somebody that really needs some work. And what's happened there is really kind of cool because they put it on their Facebook page and they have others that have started doing it. And so now when there's big dental bills that like significant dollars, what'll happen is there'll be maybe 4, 5, 6 people that'll be a part of that,
Mm,
along
good.
with the care provider, and be able to take care of a pretty extensive project.
Yeah.
Um, I just, again, it's basic care we don't think about. I go to the dentist twice a month, get my teeth cleaned. I don't even think about it. Um, Same thing when we came to visit you. It was something we did twice a month. Every other week I saw you, got adjusted, and that kind. But there are people that need that and cannot afford it and don't have insurance.
Hmm.
So how do you help them? What do you do? And
Right.
so it was a nice way for us to be a part of that. And I thank you for participating with me in that.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for sharing that. I know that you don't
Yeah.
like to talk about all that, but I think it's important.
Well, I think it is important for us to just realize what's out there and we don't get. And I listened to a speaker just recently. He said, there's 3 places in life you need to visit. Everybody needs to visit. You need to visit a prison, you need to visit a hospital, and you need to visit a cemetery. And you visit the prison so that you get a true feeling and understanding and value of what it means to be free. And if you've ever been inside of a prison, it's an amazing, when that door shuts, even though I know it's going to be opened again and I'm going out, it's a sense of this is my life right now. And so what does it mean to really be free? And when we walk out that door, and the sacrifices that have been made for that freedom is huge when we think about that. You visit a hospital, to go back to your point, to see how precious health is, but you also see every stage of life in the hospital, from birth to the things that happen in between, to people who are dying. And then you begin to appreciate every stage and what that means and where you go. And you visit the cemetery to understand that the ground that you walk on, you now become a root to. And that statement said something to me as well, because it's more than when you die, but it's what you leave behind that grows. And so that whole process meant something. I just thought that was really kind of a cool analogy of life, to sit and look at the stages
Yeah.
and value what's truly valuable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this was wonderful, Mark. Thank you so much for
You're very
hopping on.
welcome. You're very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope I, added some insight, but anyway.
You need the wisdom, man. I got it. That was good. Very, very good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
I guess LinkedIn. I'm out on LinkedIn.
Okay.
As you well know, I'm not a big social media person. And that'll basically have my next steps if I decide to. One of the things I'm doing is I'm actually becoming a certified life coach. And so I did it. I started the process to actually just to enhance my business coaching, because I kind of felt sometimes that I was more of a life coach than a business coach at times, because I heard the
They're
stories
the
of
same
why.
thing.
What's that?
I think they're a lot of the same things.
In a lot of ways they are. And
Yeah.
so I did it just, how can I help that? And so I became a part of that. And so there's a part of me that thinks, oh, maybe someday I'll just do that. And it might be kind of fun too. So, but that'll all be out there on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best way to find me and do that.
Okay. And it's Mark Wagner. So just
Yeah.
for everybody,
Mark
all the
Wagner.
listeners.
Yeah,
Mark
nothing
Wagner.
fancy. So
Mm.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time.
Thanks
you're
so much,
very
Mark.
welcome. Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you. And
Pleasure to
it's
meet
good to
you.
see you again. And I hope we'll stay in touch.
We will. Okay.
All
Have
right.
a good one.
Thanks. Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.